AF band plays our national anthem, Advance Australia Fair. And now only a few electric moments away from the start of the 1980 Hardy-Ferodo 1000 at Mount Panorama. Our special guest, the president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Mr. John Cooper.
Thank you, Mike Raymond, and good morning. It's my particular pleasure today on this beautiful sunny Sunday in Bathurst to bring you greetings from our great race, the Indianapolis 500, to Australia's great race, the Hardy-Ferodo 1000. This is, without doubt, one of the most spectacular racing circuits in the world, and on behalf of the thousands who are here at Bathurst today and the millions around Australia watching on the 7 Network, it's my pleasure to say, ladies and gentlemen, start your engines.
Thank you, John. And there you can hear the engines have started, and we're ready for the great race.
Now there's a mad scramble as the support crews leave the grid. The marshals urging them on, hurrying them on, because they're ready for the start of the great race. The aerial view again from the Channel 7 helicopter. Pilot Terry Lee, cameraman Doug Hampson. It won't be long now before they begin that hectic scramble and take the left-hander in the mountain straight for the first time.
163 laps facing the drivers. On the front row of the grid, Bartlett in a Camaro, Johnson in a Falcon. Right behind them, Johnny Harvey in the number 2 Holden dealer team car, and alongside him in the second of the Marlborough entries, Peter Brock, the man who has won here 4 times in all, a record he shares with Alan Moffat further back in the grid. They're the top 4, and there'll be a real catfight in these opening laps.
Are you kidding that Bartlett and Johnson aren't going to be watching the rearview mirror for Peter Brock? What a scramble it's going to be.
Dick Johnson, the popular favourite. I can't recall in recent years how one man has so captured the imagination of the public. A real battler, if I could use that term in the most affectionate sense, who has got up here by sheer skill and determination on the front row of the grid. Behind the Marlborough Holden dealer team pair, you have Alan Grice. And there the view from the man alongside him, Bobby Morris's car, the Channel 7 Breville entry. You can just see in the rear vision mirror Bob Morris making a last-minute check of his instruments. And you'll be right up in the action with a very fast car when we go racing with Bobby Morris in car number 7, just adjusting his gloves.
There's Brock, the reigning Australian touring car champion, the man who had pole here last year and who won the race last year, who led throughout last year. Not used to being where he is at the moment. And he's going to be looking to turn the tables on the pair that have taken the top spots on the grid away from him.
The early question we have to answer, of course, is whether the Chev Camaro, the heaviest car in the race, the car on the right-hand side of your grid, 3,400 pounds in weight, has got quite the same acceleration as some of the lighter cars. And I think it might be Dick Johnson in the Blue Falcon who'll go for the front. But could it be John Harvey, the man nearest you, who may have been given the role to get there and unsettle his front pair and leave the running to Peter Brock on the far side in the dark red helmet? And let Peter Brock try and become the first man ever to win this race 5 times. Count it out, 10 seconds to go. And it's Johnson who's got the start, and it's a slow start by Kevin Bartlett in the Camaro, and the cars are peeling around, and here's the view from Bobby Morris's car.
It's Dick Johnson of Queensland who leads on the time up with Peter Brock tucked in behind him. John Harvey is next, and Bartlett now starting to make up a lot of ground after a very slow start.
Very poor start indeed by Bartlett. I don't know what happened to him on the front.
It's just a big and slow car off the mark, but it's got long legs and over 1,000 kilometres. That'll probably count. But it's Johnson who's away, and he doesn't want to be in any other position throughout the entire race. And he's got a long lead, and Brock is after him.
And Bartlett now up into 3rd place after that run up the mountain.
Well, that shows the legs of the Camaro. He made up a lot of ground and passed 3 cars going up there, just in front of Johnny Harvey. Then it's Alan Grice next, who made a good start and is perfectly positioned. But it's Dick Johnson from Queensland, who for the first time draws the cheers of the crowd, and the Ford flags are out as they come flying up the top of the mountain on lap 1 of the Hardy Ferrari 1000 for 1980.
Wait for the cheers from the crowd as they come across the top of the mountain on lap 1 of the great race for 1980, the Hardy Ferrari 1000. You'll be able to see the spectators, absolutely placards waving, standing there cheering because a Ford's going to lead the first lap of this race. Bartlett is back into 3rd place. Very poor start. But he's managed to displace Harvey, I think it is. That great shot of the cutting. Look at the wheels hiking as they come down through this part of the course. Moffat, followed by Ron Dixon, then Murray Carter.
Peter Jansen, well placed, the man who came 2nd last year. Content to play a waiting game. He's in car number 4.
Now this is where we should see the long legs of the Camaro as they come on to Breville Conrod straightaway.
And Mike Raymond, an ominous sign for Alan Moffat fans. Oil already appearing, whiffing around the back. He had an oil leak in the practice session, which did no more than deposit oil on the exhaust pipe. It could be that, or it could be something more serious, because last night Alan Moffat's team rebuilt the engine for his car. And here,
this is from Bobby Morris's car as he goes after. Morris coming down right behind Alan Grice, as you can see in the Craven Mild car. Then the Marlborough dealer team Commodore there on the inside. Now they swing back for the completion of the first lap. And it's Queensland's Dick Johnson who leads from Peter Brock. Next is Kevin Bartlett, followed by Alan Grice, John Harvey. Bobby Morris is the next one, 100 metres back to Charlie O'Brien, and the next is Larry Perkins, then followed by Gary Rogers and Alan Moffat, blowing a pall of smoke as they complete the first lap of the Hardy Ferrari 1000.
You can see Bob Morris's face in the right there, looking at the instruments, looking straight ahead. We'll be able to talk to him all through the race, and he can talk back to us, but things will be pretty busy there at the moment, I would think, in the cockpit of the Breville Channel 7 Falcon.
And there's the Camaro that moves down the inside of Alan Moffat.
It's the view down Conrod Straight, and Dixon's got through there to lead Moffat. Moffat still blowing that smoke from the rear of the car as they approach the turn into pit straight. Meantime, Dick Johnson has gone through the completion of his 2nd lap, still pursued by Peter Brock and Kevin Bartlett, then Alan Grice, Bobby Morris and John Harvey.
Well, you'd think it was the fog rolling in, but it's not. It's the smoke coming out of the back of Alan Moffat's Federation Unipart entry. Murray Carter just sitting in behind him in another XD Falcon. It certainly isn't blowing as much as that. They head off up pit straight one more time. Well, Dick Johnson of Queensland, for all our Queensland viewers, has led the 2nd lap of the race. They're doing it very strongly indeed. Here's Murray Carter moving up on the tailpipe of Alan Moffat and passes him quite easily. Just ahead of them is the Ron Dixon Chevrolet Camaro. Then in behind them, of course, the Citizen Watches entry with Gary Cook and Warwick Brown.
And so it's Murray Carter who's barreled by Alan Moffat, is chasing Ron Dixon. An incredible man, Murray Carter. He won his class in the first Armstrong 500 at Phillip Island 20 years ago. And there he is out carrying the flag for Ford and driving like a real tiger. But the man who's leading the race and doing even better is Dick Johnson.
Well, a privateer is Dick Johnson, who did so well, debuted this car in the recent CRC Chemicals 300 at Amaroo Park. Didn't put a spanner on the car from the day he turned up to practice until the day they qualified on the first day of the race, and went on to finish in 2nd place. And he's out in front leading from Peter Brock. Kevin Bartlett has gained back 3rd place, and I think is zeroing in on the tailpipe of Peter Brock, looking for a slingshot at him on Breville Conrod Straight.
We have cars in the pits already. The Army Reserve Falcon has come in with Bobby Muir, and the Queensland Toyota dealers car number 47, which had trouble through the practice session. They had to change the engine. Wally Scott, he too is in the pits.
Yes, well, he's going back out again, the Bob Muir and the Army Reserve entry, heading back out after a cursory pit stop. But that has probably thrown out any chance they've had of running in the top 10 in the first hour of this race. Here comes our race leader, True Blue, number 17. That's Dick Johnson in the Palmer Tube Mills entry. Coming down into the left-hander, brings it back on for the completion of the 3rd lap. That blue Ford is running very strongly indeed. Kevin Bartlett, who missed the start, has now made it up. He's to second place. Peter Brock is third. Alan Grice is fourth. Bobby Morris is fifth. And John Harvey is sixth.
Moffat is slowing down on Conrad. He's dropping right up. He'll come into the pits. There are a lot of cars in there. Terry Wade from Victoria has brought the Dolomite into the pits, and the Army car of Muir has gone to the back of the pit area with no oil pressure.
Well, we're positioning our cameras in the pits because this could be the first stop and the last stop for Alan Moffat. Coming down very slowly to the bottom part of the track and heading back towards the pit area.
Desperately bad luck for the man who so wanted to win here 5 times and get himself into the record books. Not that he hasn't made that achievement, but no one has ever won this race more than 4 times. In the old days, when it was at Phillip Island and then here under different names, the Armstrong 500, the Gallagher 500, drivers like Bob Jane and Harry Firth also had 4 successes. But in recent times, it's been Moffat and Brock who have dominated this race. In fact, only 2 other drivers have won in the last 10 years. That's Bobby Morris with John Fitzpatrick and the man who made pole yesterday, Kevin Bartlett, who ran with Johnny Goss back in 1974. And Moffat, the man who wanted to win again, is in the pits, while the other Ford driver who really has a chance out there on the circuit at the moment, Dick Johnson, lifted his wheels up in rather a dramatic fashion, is leading the race, and it's Kevin Bartlett after him, having got ahead of Peter Brock, who now is running in 3rd place.
Yes, Peter Brock running in 3rd. The race leader, Dick Johnson, going through Forest Elbow, very wide, almost tail on the concrete wall. Peter Brock, though, is not too far back behind Kevin Bartlett. Bartlett should have the edge on Brock in straight line speed down Breville Conrod Straight. Alan Grice well positioned at this stage, and John Harvey just sitting off the pace, but certainly running in the top 6.
Fairly obvious in the mountain that time that Brock has the legs through the bends on the Chev Camaro of Kevin Bartlett, but Bartlett almost certainly has the longer legs down the straight here with the big 5.6-litre American Chevrolet.
Car 56, the Gemini that they spent all night rebuilding. The cars, race team Gemini of Alan Goff and Colin Spencer, is in the pits.
Already they're starting to lap cars, and Dick Johnson had a violent maneuver there to dodge one of the slower cars. Undoubtedly, the driver of that car wasn't expecting to be lapped so early in the race.
There's a few more who have just felt the sides wind as Johnson flew by there. And
Johnson, but Bartlett too.
Bartlett has got a few more still to pass there. Johnson's got a break on them going up the mountain. Kevin Bartlett in 2nd, sitting back, probably about 100 metres back behind, 10 metres to Peter Brock in 3rd, probably 20 metres back to Alan Grice, then John Harvey. Here they come, up towards GTX. There goes our leader, Dick Johnson. And there'll be early champagne with the breakfast in the state of Queensland this morning. And Dick has shown in the recent CRC race that his car is reliable.
Bobby Morris at the wheel of his car. This is the new camera equipment that Mike Raymond was telling you about earlier in the program. We can turn it round, look at the driver, and here's a driver at work going up the mountain, changing gear. See how he's playing with the wheel, correcting. Tremendous concentration needed. There's Bobby Morris, who won here in 1976 and would dearly love to have a 2nd victory at Mount Panorama. Fights his way across the top of the circuit, and he is flying over 160 here, up to 180 kilometres an hour.
And I think fights his way is the right word too, Evan Green. It's an awful amount of concentration and strength required there. Bobby Morris throws the car across the top of the mountain, and that's what it looks like to the spectators up there. And that's what it looks like over Bobby Morris's shoulder, inside the car. That's where our camera is.
Well, for those folks sitting at home, speed laws of Australia don't allow you to drive your car around at 170 kilometres an hour. But just look how relaxed, despite all this concentration and the fact that he is running in the top 5, just how relaxed Bobby Morris is at the wheel.
While we watch Bobby Morris, the word from the pits is that Terry Wade's Dolomite has a seized engine, and Chris Hire, the man who led the class in the 1.6-litre category, has brought his VW Golf into the pits after only 3 laps. And in the meantime, Bobby Morris is in a busy situation with traffic all around him, and this is really a very worrying part of the race. You can see there Peter Brock flashing the lights on his car to let traffic in front know that he wants to come through. And having just passed the line Commodore. It's Bobby Morris around for another assault upon the mountain circuit. He goes up Mountain Straight. Alan Grice, the car just in front of him.
The mountain again, it's still Dick Johnson ahead of Kevin Bartlett and Peter Brock. They're the big three.
And Alan Moffat has taken his car to the back of the pits. And that's a tragic blow for the man who was won here 4 times.
Field streaming through. John Harvey's car going through there. Alan Grice, Bob Morris.
We certainly wouldn't want to disrupt Bob Morris at this stage, asking to give us a full-scale commentary of how it feels to be jumping in between an overlapping Triumph Dolomites. Bob settling down, trying to run in that race pattern in the top 5 and doing it very, very well at this stage. 2 Fords running up there in the top 6. That's a good sign for our Ford fans today. We've got one leading the field and one still within striking position behind the tails of the Commodores.
Morris using all the track, free of traffic at this moment as he comes across the top.
John Harvey is back behind him. We've got the Lion Stanley entry that has stopped in the worst place possible.
It's car 23 that started at the rear of the grid.
And rear could be the operative word in a moment.
They didn't have the car running in practice, which is why it started in the rear, and obviously it's not running properly now, and that's a terrible place for it to have stopped. Bill Stanley, the co-driver, has been here many times and has featured in all sorts of runs, mainly in the smaller cars, Minis and Ford Escorts and so on. Had a phenomenal crash in an Escort at Amaru Park during the year.
This is a tricky manoeuvre as they try to get that car out of there.
This will be heart-stopping stuff.
Let's all hold our breath and just wonder what's going to happen. But
they're just going to push it over the mountain. That's it, yes. OK, let's go back to some of the action now with Bobby Morris in the Everlast Breville Falcon.
And he goes past
Chris O'Connor-Mackie, perhaps, I believe, is in the pits area. Chris, if you receive us and can grab hold of Alan Moffat, let's hear from you.
Okay, Alan, the man that's won that race so many times, to be a pedestrian so early has to be a great disappointment, I know, Al. Your car was smoking, but it was running well.
Yes.
Stopped in the pits, and the engine was covered with oil. Do you know what the problem was?
Yes, it was all over my feet as well, Chris. We put new rings in it last night. That was the problem all weekend long, and that's why the car was going so well. It was trying to go, was back up on compression, and unfortunately with the warm-up lap or the pace lap, whatever we want to call it, that's when the rings got run in, and for all those heavy motorists, I can tell you it doesn't work. You have to run your motor in, and that's what killed us. They didn't seat, and the oil just comes blowing up from underneath the engine and floods everything up. My feet are soaking with oil.
You know, a man with such a following in Australian motor racing, you've had your problems all year long, and the Falcon came on stream a bit late. Was it lack of preparation time that really perhaps did you in?
Yes, 30-day wonders never do too much for you, but we were quite convinced, Chris, you know, we've got a lot of American engineering in this car. We got the best of Australian engineering in it. But when you get behind the 8-ball and you try to do so much, sometimes it's a little bit difficult. Let's face it, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it.
I know it. Alan, as a man who knows the scene, looking at the remainder of the field, if you were to pick somebody that might win, who would you point the finger at?
I'm never much of a dice man here, Chris. It can be anybody's race.
Make it easy for you. Would it be a Falcon or a Commodore?
I don't think it's going to be a Ford product.
Okay, that's it from Alan Moffat. Better luck next time, Alan.
Well, I think the Dick Johnson fans will have something else to say about that. But anyway, leading the race at the moment, of course, is still Dick Johnson of Queensland in the Palmer Tube Mills entry. Kevin Bartlett in the 9 Network Chevrolet Camaro in 2nd place, and Peter Brock in the 05 Marlboro Dealer Team Commodore in 3rd.
Peter Brock is up there in 3rd spot.
Okay, over the top of the mountain, Bobby Morris in the Breville Ford. Back in 4th place, John Harvey in 5th, right behind him. Now from our static camera shot, watch the way they pick up the wheels as they come through here. There's Bobby Morris. We relocate the camera and you can see the driver at work. Taking a little look now and then out the mirror. Down through the mountain. Brings them back on to Breville Conrod Straight, and they're off and running. Flat all the way to the end of the straightaway, and the left-hander that brings them back past the pit area.
While we watch Bobby Morris, bad news for Mazda fans. 3 Mazda RX-7 started. The news from the pits is only 1 is still running. The other 2 are in the pits and behind and being worked on. An enormous number of cars have visited the pits in the early stages, but only 1 big car so far, Alan Moffat's, which is out of the race almost certainly. The rings didn't bed in, a new motor. He tried to run them in 1 lap, as you may have heard him say in his conversation with Chris O'Connormackie. It didn't work. They didn't settle down. The oil came pouring past him.
Here's a great dice here with Harvey, who moves up on the outside of Bobby Morris. There's a little bit of dirt there. Whoops, boys. Straighten it back up, and now it's really starting to get serious between Bobby Morris and John Harvey. Harvey looking at wanting to go after Peter Brock, and Brock is already putting pressure on Alan Grace. Okay, let's have a look at the rear view. See, for you folks at home, we're showing you everything today. Here's John Harvey. This is how it would look if you're a passenger in the back seat of Bob Morris's car.
You can see the long legs of the Falcon. They're just pulling away a little bit. But Harvey closing up a little bit as they come towards the corner. And up the hill will be interesting. This is where the Falcon should do well with a bigger engine. Maybe around the top of the bend is where Harvey might make up just a little bit of ground, but a pretty close dice. 2 very experienced drivers at work here.
There you can see the shot on your screen, Morris leading, and in our insert shot, that's how close Harvey gets to Bob Morris through the tricky part of the circuit. You'll see how he'll probably close up as they go over the top of the mountain and down into the S's, and hoping John makes no rude gestures.
He's making a move on the side, though. He's taking a slightly different line, as you can see, as he goes through.
The only thing holding him up are 2 million viewers throughout Australia,
of whom half will be feeling slightly car sick, I suspect. A lot of people don't like travelling backwards, especially at about 200 kilometres an hour, which is what they're doing along the top of the mountain. And they're about to dip down, and here comes in Harvey, trying to close in a little bit. They pass one of the escorts. They've just passed in the class. And Harvey is closing up and may make a slight move to get by here. And if he does, you'll be the first to see it.
Well, Morris gained a little bit of ground that time. He's pulled away just a little, but they have to overlap another slower car.
That's, in fact, Johnny Goss in the XJS Jaguar, which really hasn't done any proper running here, running in almost standard trim. And John Goss gets to one side to let John Harvey go through. Bob Morris is away.
He really pulled away from the Commodore at that particular part of the track, but allowing for the fact that Harvey was caught a little behind Goss, who moved from the left to the right across the road. But just look at the speed difference there as they head down Breville straightaway, Conrod Straight, heading down to the pit area. And there is quite a gap there. As you can see, he has pulled away from the Commodore.
The braking will be interesting, Mike, to see whether the Commodore driver tries to close up a little bit on the brakes. Tend to leave the margin as it is.
61 here is going to have cheap thrills for everyone here in a moment.
We can see the difference under brakes. Harvey has come right up on his tail. Maybe pressing the car a little harder, and in fact he's trying to get by. We're losing him as he goes out to one side. Now whether Bob Morris will stand that is hard to say. You can see Harvey alongside. He has the inner running.
Where has he gone? Here he is.
We'll swing round and see what happens to him. There's the view on the left.
He's
and
past
there he
him.
is. Fabulous stuff. This is a world first in motor racing. This has never happened before. And we've got this great dice between 2 master drivers. Bob Morris, who's now out passing Johnny Harvey again.
Up the mountain.
Good morning, John. See you back on top of the mountain. Well, that'll give you an idea of the speed difference. Morris then goes back up into 4th place. Harvey is still 5th, and they've been playing cat and mouse for the last 6 laps of this race.
Tooling along out in front and enjoying the breeze is Dick Johnson from Queensland, and he's still got about a 50-metre lead over Kevin Bartlett in the 9 Network Camaro.
As in past years, all through the race, we'll be calling upon the services of the IBM computer people here who've been with us now for more than a decade, and we'll keep you posted with what's happening in outright, what's happening in the classes, and we can break it down on a make-by-make situation for you. That'll be happening throughout the telecast.
Once again, over the top of the mountain, and it's Bobby Morris and John Harvey, this great dice. Okay, down through the mountain. We'll carry them through until they hit Conrod straightaway one more time. Bobby Morris, John Harvey, the 25 car, the car that was driven by Alan Moffat at Sandown in the recent 400 where he placed 4th. Nick Allen would love to be driving the car today. Morris, who is very quick in traffic. They come back on to Breville, Conrod Straight, and away goes Bobby Morris, and that'll give us a short break. We'll take a break in the action and be back live with the Hardy Ferretto 1000 from Mountain Panorama at Bathurst.
round panorama, the top 10 after 9 laps. It's the Falcon of Dick Johnson from the Camaro of Kevin Bartlett, the Commodore of Alan Grice, who's now in front of the Brock Commodore, the Falcon of Bobby Morris. The car we're watching now in 5th place, just ahead of Johnny Harvey, who's running 6th in the Commodore. Charlie O'Brien is in 7th place in another Commodore. Peter Jansen running 8th in another Commodore, as is Gary Rogers in 9th. And in 10th place, the Falcon of Murray Carter. They're the top 10 by courtesy of IBM.
Still this great dice going on across the top of the mountain between Bobby Morris in the Channel 7 Rebel Ford entry and John Harvey, car 25, the second of the Marlborough Holden dealer team Commodores. And it's provided most of the action so far in terms of close racing in this 1980 Hardy Ferodo 1000. Federation Insurance entry, car number 1, Alan Moffat, out of the race. Big disappointment for Alan. Bit of brake lock up.
Yes, well, the lead still is held by Dick Johnson of Queensland. Here's this great dice continuing for 4th and 5th place between Bobby Morris and the Breville Everlast Falcon. John Harvey, who each lap pulls out on pit straightaway and has a shot at the inside. We'll see how good. No, John decides he won't go for it this time. They'll be coming up shortly to put a lap on Peter Williamson. But this time Harvey pulls out very, very quickly. It's a very warm day here at Bathurst, and Harvey would certainly not want to be sitting in that slipstream and starting to cook the engine.
He's trying to get the line for GTX corner. Bobby Morris covering him, determined not to let him in. Here are the two of them flying up the hill. A very critical part of the section. Some people say this is where you win at Bathurst, not down the mountain, but up.
You wouldn't say that Bob was short on competition today, would you? He's got John Harvey absolutely glued to his tailpipe. John is on two-way communication, of course, to the Marlborough dealer team pits. He knows exactly where Brock is running, and Brock's running quite steadily up in 3rd place. And John is in 5th. The only driver separating them at this stage is Bob Morris. Over the top of the mountain. So we have a Ford running out front and a Ford running 4th.
And if you think they're not trying, to see the way they went round that bend up the top of the mountain. Here they are at Skyline now. Harvey is really going hard to try and make up ground. He has to play Dan Daring around the bends because Bobby Morris just has the legs down the straight and a little bit up the hill, I suspect, too. Just a little more in reserve. And with the slightly better handling car, John Harvey has to try in a fairly desperate fashion to get up there and maintain contact and put himself into a passing position. He's absolutely intent in maintaining pressure. He's not going to let Bob Morris get away. But you can see Morris now is opening up the big 5.8-litre Falcon and really flying down the straight and trying to get some sort of slipstream advantage. John Harvey sticks behind him, although at this stage about 7 or 8 car lengths in the rear. But it's under braking, he'll make an effort. It just depends on the sort of line that Morris is going to leave him. Passing other cars at a breathtaking pace.
Chris Economaki is in the pit area and is making several observations at the moment. Chris, can you hear us? We'll get Chris the next lap around. Here's Bob Morris, John Harvey, glued to his tailpipe. Once again, Harvey pulls out. What's the run to GTX Bend?
He's running for 5th and 6th position. The car's a little more open at the front. A great dice in the race in these early stages between this pair. Again up the mountain. It's Morris who leads the way. Harvey who follows, putting his wheel tracks on exactly the same place. Chris Hire, VW Golf behind. They was in the pits for a brief period of time. The message from our men there was there was a broken throttle cable, which his pit crew have replaced, and the man who was fastest in practice among the small cars is back on the track, but he's given away something like 2 laps to his rivals in that category. Harvey's close this time. He's held on pretty well up the top of the mountain. and he'll be making a big play as they come down the side. He can't afford to lose Bob Morris down Breville Straight. That's a very fast part of the circuit. In the meantime, there's our leader.
Dick Johnson from Queensland. Ripping down Breville Conrod Straight, the head of the field. Fair sort of a break.
Yes, he has.
Kevin Bartlett's dropping back, Mike.
Yes, he was starting to smoke the last couple of laps back, and this has enabled Johnson to get that good buffer. He's managed to put probably another 100 metres. And Johnson doing it smoothly. He's a very, very tidy driver, Johnson. And if you want to last 1,000 kilometres around Bathurst, you just have to be tidy.
The reason that Kevin Bartlett is dropping back, we believe, is his back brakes are starting to drop. That may be the smoke we can see. He's having to ease up a little bit, and that's not good news for the Camaro driver.
Johnson makes the left-hander and up mountain straight again.
Oops. And one of the slower cars cut one of the others off, swerving across the road. But that enabled the race leader to...
Kevin Bartlett has gone into the pits.
Well, we have Bartlett into the pits. I don't think they plan to be in the pits quite this early. Some of the pit activity as the rear wheels come off. Kevin sitting there. We'll just check and see if they're doing anything to the brakes. Bartlett is talking back through his two-way communication.
Locking rear brakes was the problem, as we heard. Out of the hot tub, mechanic hasn't got asbestos gloves. He's going with raw fingers, and I suspect he might get a few burnt ones. There's the drum off.
Yes. That's not a good start to this year's race for Kevin Bartlett.
He's a fully professional driver, KB. First race in 1957, 23 years ago, and he ran an MGTC at Mount Druitt. I asked him how he went. I said, where did he finish? He said, nowhere. And maybe that's where he's going this year. Although he was a man who made a break in Hardy's Heroes yesterday and won himself $9,250. It might be all the money that Kevin Bartlett is taking back from this year's Bathurst race. We'll return in just a few moments to see what progress his mechanics are making getting this Chev Camaro back on the track when we return to the action here at Bathurst in the great race.
Back in the pit area, and Kevin Bartlett is still in there. Chris Economaki is in the pits, and we're waiting to see if we can get something back from Chris Economaki, but this is a long pit stop and not one that I think that Kevin Bartlett wanted to make. Let's go trackside to Chris Economaki.
All right, we're down here in Kevin Bartlett's pit where the hood goes back down. The problem has been one of brakes, and the car fires up. And perhaps we can have our cameraman over here give us a shot of the brakes that they've taken out. At any rate, the specially made brakes on the back of the Camaro just cooked here. I'm looking at them, they're still smoking. The mechanics did quite a job in getting these units out. As we can see right here, they're very large, much larger than stock brakes. You could almost barbecue a hamburger. You could almost barbecue a hamburger from the heat that's radiating from this brake drum and brake lining combination that's been taken off the Bartlett Camaro. The mechanics did a great job. It's red hot to work with this stuff, change the rear brakes, and get fresh ones on to send them back out. But this portends more trouble for Kevin Bartlett if in this shorter period of time he's overcooked the brakes. You can see it blistering the paint right behind it. On the wall, the heat blistered the paint right off the wall. It's really hot. I've never seen brakes this hot, and it's quite thick. So one of the problems in the Hardy Florida 1000 has struck pole sitter Kevin Bartlett early. Back to the tower.
Thank you, Chris. In fact, right behind you, I saw Bobby Forbes. You might like to check with Bob to see whether they're planning any change. Otherwise, Kevin has got no hope in the world of lasting the race if he was forced to go into the pits after only 14 laps. In the meantime, the man who is apparently having no brake trouble and still leading the race, as he has from the very outset, is Queenslanders Dick Johnson.
Well, Bartlett
someone just going for a stroll across the road. Yes.
There's a car parked on the right-hand side, as you can see. They're opening the door. Looks like one of the Recar cars. It's a bit hard to see by the partial sign writing. The Recar people have 3 cars, one of which was in the pits just a while ago. That was a Scotty Taylor car, the small 3-litre Commodore that he prepared from Wodonga.
That's the race leader, Dick Johnson from Queensland. that braking problem, and the pit stop cost Kevin Bartlett's Camaro the best part of 2 laps, about a lap and 3/4.
4 minutes in the pits, just in static time, let alone what he lost in slowing down.
So across the top,
well,
Dick Johnson is feeling good.
He carries a map of Queensland on the roof of the car. He's pursuing another Falcon at the moment. Number 32, he's about to engulf, I think. It's not a Falcon, that's 32. It sure looks like a Falcon to me here. Maybe I'm picking up the wrong number, 22 maybe. A bit hard to see the way some of these cars are painted. Jim Keogh, I think it would be, who distinguished himself by being the leading Ford Falcon finisher last year when he came home in 14th place. But just being passed by the leader in the race now, and he'll tuck in behind him and follow him down the straight and say, how's he got a lap power when I can't go nearly as fast in the same sort of car?
2.2 seconds between the race leader, Dick Johnson, and now in second place, 0.5, Peter Brock in the Marlboro Holden dealer team Commodore. Now, hello, what's this?
We had one upside down. Just checking out for you.
Is it Ron Wanless? It's a bit hard to pick. I don't want to cause people frights, but it looked as though it may just have been number 26. I just couldn't.
If I stand on my head.
No, it's not. It's one of these smaller cars, number 59. And 59 is one of the under 1600cc cars.
That's the Gemini.
That's one of the country dealer teams, Gary Rowe, in the country dealer team Gemini. He's gone into the fence. He's rolled the car, lost a wheel. That's the tire. He's just knocked out from the barrier there, up the top of the fence. Marshals around the car. Bits of debris there. You can see what's happened. He's gone right in. The driver taking off his helmet. That's him on the left. Rowe is on the left.
Gary Rowe. This was his second year at Bathurst. In fact, I think he finished 3rd in this class last year.
But you can see he's hit the wall there on the inside. It's up the top of the mountain and flipped the car right over and has come down to land on the roof very heavily. A really hard impact. But mind you, this is one of the fastest parts of the circuit, and he'd be traveling at absolutely maximum throttle opening there. When he came in, for what reason we don't know, there's a tire and wheel bent right out. I thought at first it was missing.
There is Gary Rowe standing up on the embankment.
In the meantime, something for sensation. We've got Peter Brock in the pits, so we've got 2 of the leaders in, and Brock has come into the pits.
And at this stage, doesn't look terribly happy.
Shaking his head.
Well, maybe Bathurst is not going to be his race. He's had such a great year this year that I think he was worried that his fortune was going to run out. The thing he was most concerned was he'd had such a good year that surely luck was going to turn against him. A new wheel being put on.
Yes, and I would think, you know, a lot of others have bad luck. Let's go trackside to Chris Economaki to give us the full story. You there, Chris?
Yes. Okay, down here in the pits with Peter Brock. He's got problems with the front end of the car.
Oh, he's hit something.
As you can see here, as you can see, the left front corner of the 05 car has been damaged, and the radiator, obviously, as steam is coming out, it may well be that Peter Brock's run of victories here in the Hardy Florida 1000 comes to a short end. Look at him in the side of the car. He may be getting out.
It looks, Chris, as though he may have hit another car.
He's going back out. He's driven over the jack. And they're sending him on. Now, what they'll do now is get ready to service the car with a more elaborate repair job when he comes back in. And we'll be standing by for that repair job when it happens. Back to the tower.
Thank you, Chris. Well, drama indeed for Peter Brock. Whether or not they needed another lap for him to turn off, or whether to get back into the back of the pits.
The great question here, Mike Raymond, is whether it was a wise move sending him out. Now, they needed the time and said, we don't want to waste time, we'll get ready for you. But he's got to go right round the track with a car that obviously is losing a lot of water. And now the dilemma facing Peter Brock is whether he's going to ruin that motor in this one lap, 6 kilometres to go. He's losing a lot of water. It looks like he's hit someone or something. I suspect, in view of his past record, he's got caught in the traffic and been damaged in another car.
And besides that, at that same time, Dick Johnson has now put a lap on Peter Brock. There's Johnson, who overlapped that bunch, which included Peter Brock.
Well, Brock won the race by 6 laps last year, but I imagine now he's not saying, well, I've got 6 laps to spare. He'd be a very worried man. Mr. Cool of motor racing. But things aren't going well his way, and of course we have Kevin Bartlett with even earlier troubles with his...
Oh, we've had another bang, and is that the race?
That's the leader. Dick Johnson. Now, whether Dick has been hampered by the rescue truck here, which is out on the track, but he has gone into the fence. Dick Johnson, the leader, he's broken the left-hand front suspension. You can see by the way the car is leading down. Now, a rescue vehicle has been out to bring in one of the damaged vehicles. The officials are running back. I rather think that Dick came round the corner and found himself with an impossible situation. You can see them stimulating the flag marshal, saying, for heaven's sake, wave the flags. There's Bobby Morris came in, almost collected the front of the car, and the field is pouring through. The marshals are out now, waving down, trying to slow things. There's a rescue truck there. Johnson, the race leader, is out of the race. I can't see he can possibly fix it. And a very disappointed Dick Johnson walking through. You can see where he's hit the fence. He's broken the front left-hand side of the car. And within 5 minutes, we'd lost Kevin Bartlett in the pits for several minutes, Peter Brock with a damaged front, and now we have the race leader, Dick Johnson, into the fence and almost out of the race.
That is unbelievable. Unbelievable set of circumstances that has taken out the three leaders inside of 10 laps.
The message we're getting back from our camera position there is he's hit a rock. Now, whether it's a rock that's been knocked onto the circuit, whether someone's thrown it down, there are no rocks on the track, but that's the word we're getting back from the track. That Johnson has hit a rock. Now, the camera point crew are saying, yes, he's hit a rock. We must try and find out what sort of rock, but he's gone into the fence as well, as you can see, which has done the damage. But something has thrown him out, and you can see where he's gone in.
Well, what dramas. Boy, Alan Moffat out of the race. Kevin Bartlett with rear brake problems. That's cost him a couple of laps already. Peter Brock done some damage to the front of his car and is going to have to come back in for repairs momentarily and has lost a lap, or had lost a lap, down to Dick Johnson. And no sooner did we say that, and here's Dick Johnson out of the race.
Our IBM people are saying that Brock hit a rock as well. Now, whether we've got some phantom rock throwers around, I don't know. But
I would tend to think that maybe that in Brock's case, but with that tender vehicle that was on the racetrack at the time, we'll have to wait to get the full story.
yes,
rather than say that people are throwing rocks on the track at this stage.
Sure. If I was to attempt an instant analysis, I'd say that Johnson came around the corner, found he had to swerve to dodge the tender vehicle, and then you can see the trouble he got into trying to get out of the correction and went into the wall. But another rescue vehicle is on the track. The oil flag is out. One of the marshals is running there, collecting bits of broken glass and plastic and metal. The field's slowing right down. There's Gary Rogers coming, saying what's going on. And the Alpha, you can see the end of the vehicle. He's been into the pits. This is the Derek Bell and car.
That looks like it's thrown a tyre off, Evan, on the left, perhaps off.
I can't quite work out where it's come from, but
that's car 48, the Phil McDonald and Derek Bell Alpha GTV. That's right.
We also have. Let's check it back. There's so much happening at this stage of the race with our, well, virtually our leaders going out. Kevin Bartlett is back on the track and circulating, but it's certainly a race of very high attrition and certainly a lot of drama. We've got a lot more coming your way, so stay with us. We'll take a break and be back live with the Hardy Frodo 1000 from Mount Panorama.
They include 05 Peter Brock in the lead Commodore for the Marlborough Holden dealer team. He hasn't come back into the pits as yet for that repair work to the front left of his car, where we understand, hit a rock. That's what caused the damage. But all sorts of dramas have been happening, and we've got Dick Johnson from Queensland out of the race after hitting the fence up the top. It looks as though car 6, the Craven Mild, no, Harvey's in first place in car 25, the second of the Marlborough Holden dealer team cars. In first place, John Harvey in car 25. Car 4, Peter Jansen, the Cadbury Schweppes Commodore, is in second place, and the Greater Pacific Finance car, Gary Rogers, is holding down third place at the moment.
Okay, we have a replay of the Dick Johnson accident that was taken from camera a fair way away from that, but we'll try and roll that in and see what we can find. There's the tender vehicle. Good.
Oh, you can see how he went up the wall there now. He was lucky not to go to the top of the wall. In fact, the way he hit that so
well, the
hard.
marshal is still falling backwards down there, and you can see whether or not there has been a wild swerve or something. We'll have to wait to get the absolute story on that. That's absolutely incredible. He must have hit that wall flat out.
Well, as fast as he could go up the hill, he came around the corner, and obviously he's had to change line because of the rescue truck out there. And that went so close to going over the top. You can see just how hard he hit. Now, I'm staggered that Peter Brock is still out there. We thought he was going straight back. Maybe he's found that the temperature has stabilised and is prepared to keep circulating. He's having no troubles with the front of the car in terms of affecting the steering. And let's go back a bit in the field to the man that you travelled with so much last year, Peter Williamson. Peter, how are things going with you back in the field?
That's the scene from inside the second of our camera cars, the Peter Williamson Toyota Celica. We've already seen some of the great action earlier from the camera inside the Channel 7 Breville Ford entry driven by Bobby Morris in that great dice with John Harvey. And this is the car, Peter Williamson.
Problem. Goodness me, it's all happening at the moment.
The McLeod Brewster Mazda RX-7. I think it was probably the last survivor of the three that were entered.
Peter McLeod trailing a cloud of smoke there. The last of the Mazdas still going as far as we know, and it's been a disastrous day for them as well as for a lot of other cars.
Okay, over the top of the mountain. Oh my goodness me. It's not the year of the RX-7, is it?
Beautifully prepared car too. Look at the how the flag of Australia was incorporated into his number on the roof of the car, but it's not going to bring him much luck, unfortunately. Back to the pits to Chris Economaki.
Thank you. I'm standing here in the Marlboro Holden dealer team pit where the timer tells me that Peter Brock's lap times are now 5 seconds off of his best earlier. He's staying out there with a damaged nose, an overheating engine, or perhaps that was just the hot water steaming out, but the aerodynamics of the car has been upset. They're going to let him stay out there and stay with it and try and perhaps fix the car at the next routine pit stop. But he's out there racing, but 5 seconds off his normal pace. Back to you, Evan.
Thank you, Chris. Well, apparently no mechanical trouble, as you say. It was probably just the steam from the overheating engine when he stopped in the pits. But I bet that Peter Brock is desperately looking at his temperature gauge to make sure it stays around the safe mark. And that'd be a great blow, because 5 seconds a lap through lost aerodynamics is going to be an enormous handicap for this man to have to try and overcome. You can see the influence there. He's lost part of the spoiler at the front, and he's lost the headlight cover. And not only would it lose some speed, but it would also affect the stability of the car, making it a little unbalanced in terms of the way it penetrates the air. Just getting the signal from one of the 2-litre class drivers to pass on the left-hand side as he goes sweeping up the top of the hill.
Might be an opportune time to take a look at our IBM score service, and let's take a look how the top 10 are running. We certainly know we won't take the 10, but we'll take at least the first 4, and we know that the Alan Grice, John Smith, Craven Mild Commodore is out front and leading. Bobby Morris and Bill O'Brien in the Falcon, running strongly in second. John Harvey and Ron Harrop in the Marlboro dealer team Commodore in third.
And a moment ago we were watching Peter Williamson, who's the man expected to lead his 2-litre class, the man who was thought might be a real rival. Gary Leggett is in the pits with the fuel injection playing up on his twin-cam Gemini. Here's the IBM readout on the position as of 20 laps. And it's Alan Grice in the Craven Mile car in front. You can see that Bobby Morris now up into second place. In third place, John Harvey in the second of the Holden dealer team cars. Peter Jansen in fourth place. In fifth, it's Gary Rogers in the Commodore. Murray Carter up into sixth position. Ron Dixon has moved into seventh place. In eighth, it's Gary Cook in the Citizens Watches Commodore. Ninth place, Pete Gagan, the man who won here with Alan Moffat way back in the early 70s in the Commodore. And off the leaderboard, Peter Brock with a damaged car which is affecting his speed, and a lot of time to make up, but a lot of determination there as he goes spearing on down Breville Straight. Well, the action is really happening here at Mount Panorama Bathurst. We'll be back soon, just as we see the Dick Johnson car taken back to the graveyard of hopes here at Mount Panorama, one of the early tragedies in the great race.
Williamson. Can you receive us, Peter?
Australia. I'm back at it again this year. Chasing my old sparring partner, Fury Ford, in front of me for the first part of the race. We're trying to keep on a constant pressure. We've had a lot of troubles trying to get to this race meeting this year, but everything seems to be working fine now. Right behind me, I've got the Dick Barber Samposi Camaro, and he's giving me some problems. Just going past now, and he'll get in my road as we break for this corner, and there he does it again. Oh, what a dingbat. My God, Father, what a deal.
Okay,
He's
Peter.
been doing that for the last 4 laps. He's going to cause me some problems unless I can get rid of him.
You seem to be doing well with him over the top of the mountain.
This is BP cutting. It's very steep climb. There's been a lot of accidents. Dick Johnson hit the wall here. He destroyed his car, unfortunately, because he was a pre-race favourite. He qualified second fastest. We've got another wreck here, a Gemini. Bad race of attrition, unfortunately. Just coming through Castrol Curve on the McPhillamy. Here we go. Hang on for a second. Very busy. Here we go again with this Camaro. Down into the dipper. Into the elbow. There's a little crawl there in our road. We'll just try and clear him. I'm sorry for the intervals in the telecast, but I'm having a bit of difficulty staying on the street at the moment. This is for Conrod Straight.
How does the car?
Beautiful side.
How does the car seem to be running at this stage, Peter?
There it is, Conrod. Bathurst in the distance. We're touching at just about 8,200 revs per minute. It's about 140 miles per hour. Not bad for a 2-litre car, wouldn't you think? We're going into the 200 brake. There's the 3. There's the 2 on the brakes. And into Murray's corner. There's the start-finish line, which I hope I see in about 6 hours' time.
How does the car seem to be running at the moment, Peter?
Who's coming across me?
Back onto pit straight. How does the car seem to be running?
Who's coming across me? He's too fast for me, but he's just caused me a lot of trouble. I had to lock a brake just coming into this corner, GDX, and I've lost so much speed now. But I'm trying to get it all back. Laurie Nelson in the Capri Components car in front of me took advantage of my problems and overtook me. Coming up into the cutting. Here we go. Yellow flags again. More trouble. Under the tree. No more yellow flags. Very confusing. Castrol Curve. Onto McPhillamy. Oh dear, come on, Holden. This Holden's doing all sorts of silly things. Oh dear, oh me. We're getting held up severely by some of these people. And of course, this little car, they haven't got a lot of top-end power and low-down torque, and when we lose, I can't get it back. See, this Holden's a big car, and he's got the legs on me, but I'll get him here under brakes. We're just coming out of the braking area now. Over the last hump, there's the 500, the 400, the 300, the 200, and here I go. Hang around. They're having a race now. Well, that might slow them down a bit and give me a bit of a chance to catch up. Which is exactly what it's done. Yes, I'm keeping my wits with the heavy. It's pretty close stuff. Caprice, as you can see, got me up the straight and down the mountain. I get it all back in the braking areas and across the top of the mountain I get it again. As Laurie Nelson's beside me. No, he's not going to come with me. Here we go. GDX. I've got to keep the speed on. As you can see, there's a white flag being waved. Means there's a vehicle on the circuit up here somewhere. They slow me down, you see, and if I don't keep the speed up with this car, I lose so much time. It's right under the tree. It's hard to replace. Bit of a Gemini, isn't it, a mess? Here we go. We'll make a bit of ground here on the Prairie Ford. Oh. There we go. This is a hard stopper. There we go. Over the skyline. What a view. I'll pull him in here if I can. And I'm doing it. He goes this boy, doesn't he?
Looks like he can stay with him there.
Try and tag him down the straight, get a draw off him, the speed, and then try and outbrake him at the bottom. But he's just a bit good for me. And there's that beautiful Conrod straight, isn't it glorious? You almost see Blakehurst from here.
How are your temperature and oil, everything running okay?
You see he's stretching away from me a bit. He's gaining about 5 or 10 cal lengths. There's the 400, the 300, the 200, here I come. Look out forward. Gotcha. Everything okay, John? Everything's okay. We just got an intermittent electrical problem with the alternator. The light keeps coming on and off every now and again. We're going to try and elastic it up when we get back. And I turn the camera off. Thank you. Over into Mountain Straight. I'm going to catch this ball again. This is GDX. I've got to really keep the power. Hang about a moment. Here we go.
That's Peter Hopwood you're chasing, Peter. He knows what it's all about, and he's going very hard, isn't he?
That looks like Peter Hopwood in front of you, Pete.
Under the tree. There we are, Reed Park. There must be a lot of petrol on the road. They're spraying it now to get rid of it. That's the normal procedure.
Looks like a pretty rough ride all across the top there, Peter.
Yeah, it's rough.
If I could just interrupt, Mike, we've got a couple of important cars in the pits too.
Okay, thank you, Peter. We'll return to the pit area. Looks like Bobby Morris is in.
Morris called into the pits there. So is Murray Carter, who's had steering problems and changing tyres. A lot of activity there. But Bob Morris, carrying the second of the Channel 7 cameras, has come into the pits. They're changing all the rubber, adding fuel, but that's just as a fill-in. That's not the reason he's coming. This is not a scheduled stop. Over to you, Chris Economaki, please.
Right, down here in Bob Morris' pit, and an unscheduled tire change is being made. Morris told me before the race that they thought they could go halfway on each set of tires. But now he's in and having the tires changed. And right now my watch says he's been in the better part of a minute, coming up on 60 seconds, which is a long stop, but he seems cool and calm, as you can see, sitting right here as the pit crews work to get these right side tires on. The jacks are coming down and he'll be going out in just a moment. My watch now shows 1 minute 6 seconds. It's going to be a 1 minute 10 second pit stop for Bob Morris. There he goes.
Well, no wonder he was so frustrated, Chris Economaki. He was only 4.1 seconds behind Alan Grice and in second place when he came into the pits. So now the order is Alan Grice leading from John Harvey, then Jansen, Rogers, and they're the top 5. And who would have put money on that? With so many of the stars either in trouble or out of the race. Dick Johnson, the leader for 16 laps. He collected $800 in prize money from Coca-Cola for leading those 16 laps, but he's out of the race. And we've got a car visiting the one of the escape roads, doing a U-turn.
It looks like is that the Citizen Watch, is it?
Yep, yes, it looks like Gary Cook's car.
Yeah, it looks like the car has spun, and that's at the end of the pit straightaway. Peter Williamson will let Peter go. It's tremendous of him, actually, to be able to carry out a conversation with Peter, and we'll go to the pit area now, where Chris Economaki has an update on the Dick Johnson withdrawal from this year's Hardy-Frodo. Take it away, Chris.
Well, I'm standing in front of an empty pit. It's a sad, sad story, the Dick Johnson story in today's Hardy-Frodo 1000. Leading the race, he got on the top of the hill, and then an animal among the spectators decided to throw a rock at him. A huge rock was thrown in front of the car. Johnson hit it, crashed, and was out of the race. His car was put on the wrecking truck. He came back, and when he got out of the wrecking truck, I was there. He was crying like a baby. In all of my years in racing, I have never seen a man so emotionally shaken as was Dick Johnson. He almost couldn't walk. He was assisted to his caravan. He had his hand over his face, and he was shaking with sobs. It's really one of the saddest racing stories I've ever had the unfortunate business to report. Back to you, the tower.
Thank you very much, Chris. And there is the rock. You can see it there on the fence, that large, dark rock with some clothing just near it. It is unbelievable that anyone in the crowd could throw a rock on the track. And Dick Johnson had the misfortune to be in its way. In the meantime, back in another Falcon with Bobby Morris.
That's the view from inside Bobby's car, and we'll be back for more of that and more of this tremendous action. Peter Williamson zipping by there. We'll be back for more of that shortly at Mount Panorama in the Hardy-Frodo 1000. That's the armchair ride from inside the Channel 7 Rebel XD Falcon, driven by Bobby Morris. And Bobby Morris at the present time is holding down third spot in this Hardy-Frodo 1000 for 1980. The two cars that are ahead of him at this time are the car 6, the Craven Mild Commodore of Alan Grice, and car 25, the Marlborough Holden Guillotine Commodore of John Harvey.
And news from the pits is that the Murray Carter Falcon is in the pits with a suspected broken rear axle, which is a great disappointment.
Here's the race leader. Here's the race leader, Alan Grice, in car number 6, the Craven Mild Commodore. And I think not far back behind him is Peter Brock, who is down on Alan Grice. But Grice at this stage has been running very smoothly. We'll go trackside at the moment. More drama in the pits. Take it away, Chris Economaki.
I'm standing alongside Murray Carter's car. It's in the pits with a rather unique malfunction, a broken axle. We don't see that much in motorsports today. It's spilling oil over there. Let's walk up and try and get a word with Murray. Excuse me a moment. Murray, are you going to be able to get back in?
Well, yes, we hope so. I think it'll only delay us for a short period. Once we change this axle, we'll be right again.
Why do you think the axle broke? We don't usually see this kind of a problem these days.
No, I think what with the rubbish that's on the circuit up there, and we're getting a little bit off the circuit at times to avoid some of the rubbish up there. Probably just getting the wheel into one of the ditches up there might have shocked the other axle and fractured it.
What kind of rubbish is up there? How bad is it?
Well, there's a lot of rubbish on the track up there where the cars have come to grief, and we're trying to keep clear of the rubbish, and probably just one of the ditches has jolted the wheel and snapped the axle.
Is that the rocks you're talking about, and is it a hazard?
No, well, we're avoiding the rocks for puncture problems.
I see. Okay, Murray Carter from the cockpit telling us that the track is really dirty up on the upper part of the circuit, and that broken axle is going to take a long time to fix on car number 18. Back to you in the tower.
Thank you, Chris, and quite a race of attrition. There's our chopper shot showing the progress of the race and the progress of the cars along Breville Conrod straightaway. Well, we have quite a number of interesting guests here today at the Hardy-Ferodo 1000. We'll be talking with many of them during the course of the afternoon. I'd like to invite in to join us Ken Squire, who is anchorman for motorsport on the CBS network in America. Ken, well aware, we've got Chris Economaki from ABC here with us as well today. Thanks for joining us. It's certainly a race of high attrition.
It certainly is. With a 62-car field, you've got a lot of excitement out here wherever you're picking up your pictures. It's really incredible the coverage you're giving us there.
Well, can you believe, of all the motor races that you've covered throughout the world, of any spectator throwing a boulder across the fence and putting out the lead car?
Yeah, that's a sadness, and it's disappointing. Once in a while, we've seen that conduct in the NASCAR Grand National circuit, but that has stopped. They've put in heavy penalties, severe fining, and the crowd who really enjoy motorsports and understands it come down pretty hard on those souls to do things like that.
Yes, it's an amazing place, though, this racetrack, because the spectator areas up in the hills up there. I'd think that the organisers would now have to look at some sort of high mesh fencing to give not only the spectators the protection on the other side of it, but today now have to give the drivers protection. That is unbelievable. A $100,000 operation of Dick Johnson's with the sponsors he's pulled together for one day only as a privateer to be thrown out of the race because some half-drunken imbecile finishes up throwing a rock over the fence.
And sadly, it always comes down that it is a motorsports enthusiast, which indeed it is not. It's usually some curiosity seeker who's trying to create some havoc, and has nothing to do with those who really enjoy the sport.
I'm sure you're right. I was going to say, in fact, I wouldn't like to be the fellow who threw the rock, because I think the motorsport enthusiasts around him will be giving him a pretty bad time now. But it's a disgraceful thing to do. I just can't believe it's happened. In the meantime, we've just seen the Chevy Camaro pass by the two Commodores. You haven't seen Commodores racing, of course, before, nor the Australian-style car. What are your initial impressions to this?
Well, I'm impressed by the facility, and I'm more impressed by your television coverage. I was in Montreal last week for the finale to watch Alan win the World Championship. And, you know, as a great enthusiast of Alan Jones, I was delighted to see that. But having gone to 4 or 5 countries and seen television coverage this year, incredible the performance that your people are getting out of these cameras, and I'm really impressed by that right there. We've tried that a lot in the United States at Daytona with our coverage of the 500, but you guys have really got your act together.
Well, it really gives a different perspective to the race. We had it last year for the first time, and a whole new dimension was added to it by allowing people to see what it really was like within the car. This year, with Bobby Morris's Big Falcon, of course, we have extra speed, a car capable of another, 30 miles an hour down Breville Straight.
I'd very much like to come back and see what you'll do about showing the footwork, because in these cars, the capability to demonstrate how much shifting there is around this course gives an idea to folks watching of just how much work there is to do. There's more than just steering the bloody thing. You've really got to be on top of it. Miss one shift here and over rev, and it's good night nurse. It's all over. And there you see those quick shifts that make the difference in any form of good road racing.
Immense concentration required. The race goes on for around 6 hours, and you can't afford one slip for half a second, or you can ruin the efforts of many, many months of preparation. It's a race, of course, that means so much to contestants. There's more than just prize money, $110,000. I think they'd race here for nothing.
Well, it's a prestigious event, and it's one that we've just heard about in the United States. As an American, of course, I'm very interested in my old friend Sam Posey, who's here with Dick Barber. They're lying about 21st on the field right now, and the only hope they have is through attrition. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see more United States competitors coming here to compete in this event. Chris Economaki, who has one of the leading motor racing weekly publications in America, really did a wonderful job for you people in the States a year ago, talking about this race in particular as one of the stellar road racing events, and drew my interest. We were over here for another event, but I sure wanted to see it, and the event and this kind of coverage here hasn't let me down. It's really exciting.
Back in Bobby Morris's car, you can see there the flame-proof gloves he's wearing. He, of course, has a full fireproof suit with flame-proof underwear. He'd be a pretty hot fella today. He's in for a hard day, and it's a very busy circuit. He's down Breville Straight now, which is one of the very few places where he can, in essence, relax. Although he has to watch the instrument, you can see him touching switches and checking to make sure the car's right. Bob Morris is a very nervous type of driver. I don't mean he's in a derogatory way, but he's like a finely tuned racehorse. He's essentially a sprinter, although he has done so well at some of these long distance events. But he's not able to relax. And in fact, one of the classic shots we've achieved on Australian television was a year when he and John Fitzpatrick won this race in 1976. And John Fitzpatrick did the last shift, and the car started to play with axle failure towards the end. And John, a supremely capable driver, nursed it across the line, and Bob Morris was in tears with emotion. And he shared that moment with the viewers all across Australia. Bobby Morris circulating around Mount Panorama, one of the stars of this year's great race, brought to you live through the 7 Network.
Well, welcome back to Mount Panorama at Bathurst, and the race continues. The great race, the Hardy Ferodo 1000. We're still travelling with Bobby Morris down Breville Conrod straightaway, about to take the riser that has been known to take the Camaros off the ground, now down into the braking area. Bobby Morris, that we're following and sitting alongside at the moment, is currently placed 5th outright in the 1980 event. Along the short pit straightaway, takes the drivers under the Hardy Bridge, the pit area you can see on the left-hand side. Our commentary box is we're just passing at the moment. Into the left-hander, through the gears. Bobby Morris at work. Comes up behind one of the Recar entries, one of the Alan Brown entered cars. And now heads up Mountain Straight towards GTX Bend. It's Morris accelerating. The Recar Commodore behind him as you see the two of them here coming up to the right-hander. That's quite a very steep run up towards the top of the mountain. And Morris at this stage, the Ford thundering along quite nicely. As we mentioned, 5th outright at the moment.
You know, one of the things that impresses me about this course, Mike, is the amount of altitude the thing has. You really have to throw these things uphill, and then naturally you have to come down. You don't see too much of that on American road courses, with the exception of Monterey, California, Laguna Seca course. And it really is a test to get through that corkscrew. Your low-angle camera is demonstrating just how difficult that is to keep it all gathered up and throw that car around.
Okay, in the pit area, we've got Sam Posey, who has just come in for pit stop. Dick Barber, it would appear, is getting ready to take over the controls.
It's surprising that they're running that poorly. I know I talked to them just before the start of the race today, and they were really out to show the Aussies up. Not the case.
Uh-oh, in trouble for another Camaro.
Kevin Bartlett, who was in the pits earlier with the rear brake trouble, slowed down. Now he's got it going again. Whether he was just having a gear selection problem or something would cause him temporary trouble is a bit hard to see, but he slowed at the top of the mountain. The flags are out, waving the drivers behind to let them know that someone is about to overtake. And it's
well, Bartlett, of course, yesterday in qualifying came down the straightaway, down Conrod Straight, selected gear, changed gear, and pulled the gear stick off with his hand. That was interesting. But he's an old campaigner, and he's been able to run all forms of open-wheel cars, and, of course, the Tourers. He just slammed it down a gear with the palm of his hand and still set quick time up until that stage.
Looks like Colin Bond may be fairly close behind him, too. That looked like car 32 that just briefly flashed by, the Marston Holmes Capri, which has been running 12th outright and leading the 3-litre class. Ron Wanless, one of the recar entries going through, and Peter Brock in the damaged Marlboro Holden Little Team car just in front of Kevin Bartlett. Both of these had stops in the pits. Bartlett's a little longer to replace the back brake drum, and Linus keeps going, so it's obviously not a problem that he needs to go into the pits for, but he's so close to the wall that I suspect he's passing some sort of hand sign message to his team to say, I'll be around soon, get ready for me. He's got a radio, you can see the aerial just on the top of the roof there, but KB obviously in trouble. The first man ever to circulate the Mount Panorama circuit at an average speed of 100 miles an hour. Did it back in 1967 in a Brabham single-seater racing car. Won the race in 1974, was on pole position yesterday, and one of the most popular drivers you can imagine. Has had 2 really bad crashes. In early 1974 in New Zealand, he put a Lola into the wall in one of the racetracks there and broke both his legs very badly. Came back in October to have his first drive since and won this race with John Goss. And then last year, the Sandown crash, broke a leg and an arm, and watched this race from a wheelchair. And of course, he's one of the stars here this year. Won $9,250 for his feat in taking pole position in Hardy's Heroes yesterday. But he's in for a troubled race this year and going very slowly up the top of the mountain. We can expect to see Kevin Bartlett back into the pits fairly soon. I gave Kevin his first chance at a works drive. He drove for the BMC team, and I used to have something to do with them way back in the early 60s, 1965, and he drove, of all things, a Morris Mini Deluxe, 1100 cc's of pure fury. And KB went out there in this car, and he hated me for it. He said, give me something that goes. Well, he's got something that goes, but unfortunately it's not stopping. And I think that might be the reason why he's going so slowly up on the top of the mountain.
Can someone tell me, as an outsider, the situation of brakes? I understand that in this car they run disc brakes in the front, but the old-fashioned brake in the rear.
They require homologation papers, which apparently haven't been taken out to meet the Australian requirements. While there are many Camaros running in America with discs all around, under the particular set of rules we have here, they're required to run on the drums, which is an enormous handicap, particularly for a car that is so fast and at 3,400 pounds is the heaviest car in the field. So that is a great handicap that Kevin has had to overcome. Earlier this year in the Australian Touring Car Series, which was dominated by Peter Brock, Kevin Bartlett was the only driver to really show any competition towards Brocky, and he won 2 races on the very fast parts of the circuit. And I know that Peter Brock regarded Kevin Bartlett as the man he most had to beat here at Mount Panorama. Well, both of them have got trouble, but I suspect that at the moment the man with the greater nightmares is Kevin Bartlett.
There's our chopper shot as we pan across the top of the mountain down onto Breville Conrod straightaway.
The long straightaways on this place really intrigue me, and what I'm really impressed by is the runoff area that have been developed on either end when people have trouble. At Long Beach, California, the Grand Prix, this year, and that hairpin turn where Regazzoni was hurt, there just wasn't enough room. That situation I don't think would happen here. There is room to get yourself under control and do something. True. Incidentally, we learned last week that Regazzoni is on the mend. They thought he might be paralyzed from the waist down for life, and he's beginning to move his toes, and things are coming better, and that's such good news to hear.
Looks like Murray Carter has another axle going back in. Murray's one of the all-time 4 favourites. Chris Economaki is in the pit area at the moment, and Dick Johnson will be moving across there to join him in about another minute, and we'll be crossing down to get that shortly. At the moment, we're just covering the Murray Carter car.
While we watch the action there, I might just run through the leading 6 as of lap 34. Alan Grice, Craven Miles Commodore in front. In car 25, Johnny Harvey in the Marlborough Holden dealer team car in second spot. Then it's car number 4, which is Peter Jansen, the merry madcap of motorsport, as he calls himself, in the Cadbury Schweppes car. And then car 16 is running in 4th place, which is... I can only find my place, I can tell you. Gary Rogers. And there's Dick Johnson down in the pits, and this is a man that I want to hear from. So it's over to you, Chris Economaki.
Well, thank you. I'm sitting here with a gentleman who has had perhaps one of the more unfortunate experiences in motor racing. First of all, Dick, are you all right physically? How hard a shot did you take in the crash?
Yeah, well, thanks to the safety equipment that's in the car, that there's no physical injury whatsoever.
Leading the race and things going your way, and the story is that someone decided to throw a boulder over the track and in your path. Is that a correct report?
Well, it was just as you crest the hill coming out of Forest Elbow, not Forest Elbow, out of the cutting, there was a rock. It was the size of at least an overnight bag, and it was right on line, and you cannot see it until you crest the hill. And unfortunately, I tried to avoid the rock, but because of these complete and utter irresponsible bloody morons.
I agree with you, totally.
That we have up there, I can honestly say that I will never ever race at Bathurst again until such time as they have a 20-foot high wire fence. The entire spectator areas are completely wired off from the track, because that is just so dangerous. I just couldn't believe my bloody eyes with these galoots up there that just throw boulders. Like, it was enormous. It was enormous.
It probably took more than one person to pick it up.
Well, I hit it with the left front tyre and the left rear tyre, and it just shattered the wheels, the tyres, the lot.
Terrible thing. Dick, that your operation, we've been told, is the private operation. What did that crash cost you in dollars and cents?
Well, unless I can get $40,000 to rebuild the car, you've lost me, because I've just had a gutful of the whole bloody operation, because it is just so bad in respect to spectators here, that they get paralytically drunk, and they're paralytically drunk before 10 o'clock in the morning, and it's just, it ruins the whole race. We went out there and I ran the race for as long as I was in it to a plan where I would run 22s, which we ran for the first 10 laps or so, and then we would sort of button off the pace. We broke the opposition, absolutely demoralised them, and we could have buttoned off and run around 25s so easily. The car was doing it so easy, everything was magnificent. And I owe a hell of a lot to all the boys in the crew, to all our sponsors from Palmer Tube Mills and Kilruss Paints, Brian Bird Ford and the Bank of Queensland, and all those people in Queensland who support us. I really thank them very much, but believe me, I feel very, very disappointed for them.
Dick Johnson, Dick, just if I can interrupt, it's Mike Raymond in the commentary panel. Dick, the switchboards at all the 7 stations across Australia are jammed of people who are so upset about what has happened. And they, believe it or not, ringing and just genuinely pledging money to help you. Now, this has happened in the last half hour. Everyone knows what has happened to you. We want you to understand that everyone admires what you've done so far in your qualifying efforts yesterday, and also this morning in leading the race, and we'll keep you informed. I know the viewers across Australia are absolutely shattered by what has happened, the same as you are shattered. We all feel the same. Probably not a motor racing supporter who threw that, probably some idiot that just came in to cause a disturbance. So take time out and we'll keep you informed what happens, Dick.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Question for you. You've been in racing a long time. Have you ever been so emotionally let down as you were? I saw you get out of the truck there. I can see you were touched right to the core. It had to be an emotional shock, more than a physical one. Has anything like that ever happened in racing before?
Never, because, you know, this was our big shot. We had stuck every single bulb into this.
Okay, and how long do you think it'll take you to get over it? For the rest of your life, I would imagine.
Oh, believe me, I'll be back. But, by geez, I won't be back here until they get that fence up, I tell you.
Okay, that's it from Dick Johnson. A man crashed out of the lead because a spectator, or spectators plural, decided to throw huge rocks on the course. A terrible tragedy, really. Back to the tower.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. And
Thanks a lot.
obviously an upset Dick Johnson. While Chris O'Connor-Mackie was speaking to him, we had two of the leaders in the pit. Alan Grice has come in. John Harvey has been in and out, so the two leading cars have made scheduled pit stops. And the driver leading the 3-litre class, Colin Bond, in the Masterton Holmes Capri, running 12th outright with a insect spattered windscreen, as you could see there in that brief shot as he came down right on the tail of the Dick Barber Camaro, I think it is. Or maybe it's Ron Dixon. A bit hard to pick up the number there, but it's Colin Bond who promised to have a really tigerish race here today. The man who won in 1969 enjoys his motor racing more than most people, and he's been running a good steady race there and is clearing out with the class, leading from Peter Hopwood, the man we saw involved in such a dice with Peter Williamson a little while ago in the Fury Ford car for Trend Windows. But it's Colin Bond who's leading the race.
Fastest qualifiers in that class, Bond and Masterton in that car 32, the Capri, 2:31. That was their best qualifying time. They came off 16th position on the grid to lead the 3-litre class, and they're still there holding pride of place in that category.
Johnny Harvey in and out of the pitch without losing second place. Alan Grice.
That's not a bad trick, is it? To get in and out without losing your spot.
Colin Bond, you know, has been running for a long time. He had his first race at Bathurst in the very last of the Armstrong 500s back in 1965 when he drove, of all things, a Bartlett. Let's meet the man himself. We're following at the wheel. Colin Bond will do that later on today. But he's quite a character. As I said, he enjoys racing, and he's been here so often, and not always with the greatest of success. He won back in 1969 when he drove with Tony Roberts and won in a Monaro, and then he's been trying ever since to emulate that. He came very close in 1977 when he staged that 1-2 finish with Alan Moffat and could, of course, won the race, but decided that the race more fittingly belonged to his team leader, Alan Moffat. And people remember him, I think, with great respect for the way he sat back and gave such a magnificent spectacle to people across the country as that dynamic finish by the Falcons back in 77. He crashed in 1972 in the wet, and he's had his ups and downs. But he's got the class in his grasp at the moment. He's up there with some of the faster cars and about to lap one of the escorts. It's the first time I can recall since his Bartlett days back in 1965 and 1966 that Colin really hasn't been in a chance with a chance of outright success. Well, one of the most popular men in motor racing. Let Colin Bond speak for himself.
This year we're driving a 3-litre Capri for the Masterton Holmes, and it's a class car. Now, every other year I've been to Bathurst, we've been here with a V8, attempting to win the race again. And usually with a few dramas, you know, we've always had them blow up on us or gearbox problems. But I feel this year with the 3-litre car, it's a very reliable motor car. You can get in the cars, drive them flat out for the whole length of the race. The brakes are big enough, the tyres and wheels and all that type of thing. In relationship to the V8s, it's a far lighter motor car. So our plan is to get in the car and drive them flat out. You know, occasionally you see a V8 go past you on the straightaway, and there and hold, it's back in the pits, stopped again. So all I can say is this year, the race, for where we're concerned, is very interesting. We hope to win our class. The car's been performing well all weekend. It's very quick, and we'll see what happens at the finish.
That was Colin Bond. In fact, while Colin and Steve Masterton are leading that class in the car 32 Capri, the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 placings in that class are held by Capris. They're all on the same lap. Bond and Masterton are followed by Seaton and Smith, then Stewart and Warner, Hopwood and Daly, Nelson and Farrell, all in Capris in that 3-litre class.
And very interestingly too, Gary Wilkinson, they're running outright 12th, 13th, 14th and 15th. And 16th is Peter Williamson in the 2-litre class. So we've got a real mixture of small cars way up there in the top 16.
So it's not just a battle for outright here with the Grices and the Morrises and the rest. It's in the smaller classes too that we're going to get plenty of action as the day continues here at Mount Panorama in the Hardy Ferodo 1000.
welcome back to Mount Panorama Bathurst, live as the race continues. There you can see the Masterton Homes pit team awaiting, obviously, their pit stop. Meanwhile, we'll pick up on Peter Williamson, who is flying down over the top of the mountain, passing some of these. Oh, look at that being held up and dips down the inside.
Leader in the 2-litre class and right on the heels of the leaders in the class above him, the 3-litre class.
Very aggressive driver is Peter, as you would need to be in the Toyota. There's Peter one more time on to Breville Conrod straight away. The Channel 9 Camaro further back. It's well off the pace at this stage, and obviously Kev Bartlett and Bob Forbes have some braking problems. 37 laps into the race, Alan Grice was in the pits, and that then put the John Harvey, Ron Harrop, Marlborough, Holden dealer team Commodore out in front.
In front of Peter Jansen.
Correct, another Commodore.
And then follows car 16.
Which is the Gary Rogers, Fred Geisler car. Rogers, of course, was runner-up to Peter Brock in the 400-kilometre race at Sandown recently. They have a very good finishing record with that car. It's only a small budget team, but they're doing a great job here at Mount Panorama today.
Car 25, John Harvey in the lead from car 4, Peter Jansen, then car 16, Gary Rogers, but there's Willow.
Let's see what Peter Williamson can do here as he moves up behind the Camaro. That's obviously feeling the pinch as far as brakes are concerned.
Bobby Forbes has been put in for the car, Kevin Bartlett having a rest in the pits.
Well,
car number 9.
The comparison that I would like to give for viewers at home is on the straightaway. You'll obviously see the big gap that the Camaro can pull away from the smaller cars, including Williamson. But as we follow them up the hill, just watch how close Williamson can get to that Camaro when they start to come down the bottom part of the mountain.
But as Williamson was saying, everything depends on the way he goes through the bends. This is Johnny Harvey, by the way, the race leader, about to go round him. He's coming up now in the white-fronted Commodore.
Meantime, down in the pits, car 16 is in. It was holding down third place, Gary Rogers in the Greater Pacific Finance Commodore. Back up the top, Harvey still looking for a way around Peter Williamson.
Peter Brock has worked his way up to 6th place outright. Damaged the car earlier on and had to come into the pits. Lost a lot of water in the front of the car. While it's been fixed in terms of clearance of the wheel, it's slowed him down because of the poorer aerodynamic shape. No problem though with the Johnny Harvey car. Peter Williamson following the Commodore along the straight. You see just how two champion drivers go when they try to get to the traffic lying in front of both of them.
I think Williamson will be only too happy to follow Harvey through here, and he's really glued to the boot lid. Here they come into this overlapping manoeuvre past the slower cars. Harvey with better acceleration, obviously, from the B8. Can bounce out a little, but Williamson will close it up under brakes every time. Now the Camaro, as you can see, is still holding that advantage. It had to pass a lot of that overlap traffic, so Bob Forbes mightn't be on the same pace as Kevin Bartlett, but it's still running quite respectably. John Harvey and Ron Harrop in the Marlborough Holden dealer team mild Commodore 25, a race leader from the Captain Peter Jansen and Larry Perkins Commodore, sponsored by Cadbury Schweppes. The third place car that was in the pits and still is in the pits ready to go out was the Gary Rogers Geisler car, so that would move
Alan Grice back up to third spot.
Alan Grice to third, Bob Morris to fourth, and Peter Brock is still in there.
And with the race almost 1 3/4 hours over, if you're wondering what happened to other favourites like Alan Moffat, the driver of car 1, went out after only 12 minutes. When he tried to bed in the rings of the engine, it didn't work, and he lost so much oil he was forced to pit and is out of the race. On 16 laps, Dick Johnson, who had led in car 17, the Falcon, crashed, hit a rock that someone apparently had thrown onto the track, put him off, and a very upset Dick Johnson went out after having been in front for 16 laps. And Derek Bell from England in the Brian Foley Alpha crashed and lost a wheel, and he too was out of the race, so 3 stars out fairly early on. Murray Carter has had actual trouble. He's handed over to Graham Lawrence from New Zealand, who's sitting patiently in the pits while the car is ready. And things are happening all the time here at Mount Panorama during the great race, being brought to you live through the 7 network.
Down in the pits, the captain, Peter Jansen, is in, and could be a scheduled stop, I suppose. The race now 1 3/4 hours old, and it is a scheduled stop.
See Larry Perkins there just doing the belt adjusting seat and the straps of the new tyres going on. May not have needed the rubber, but they can change it. Makes the review of the cars have a fresh set of tyres have been fitted.
They were holding down third spot as they came in to this pit stop behind car 25, the Marlborough Holden Dealer 10 Commodore of John Harvey, and car 6, the Craven Mild Commodore of Alan Grice.
Jansen and Perkins came second last year. The previous years they came third. Before that it was fourth. The year before it was fifth. So goodness knows they've been nibbling away. By the first stop they're up into third place. And out goes Larry Perkins.
Peter Jansen always turns on a remarkable performance at the Hardy Ferodo. How many times a year would he race?
Not very often. He runs
Sandown.
That's right. He likes to run the big races, but he's a gentleman who indulges in such pursuits as riding to the hounds in Ireland and various other things, which we can't speculate. But he doesn't do a great deal of racing. But when he does, it is very effective. You know, he started here as a playboy and people took him not seriously. But you can't ignore a man who's come second, third, fourth and fifth in successive years in the reverse order. He really is one of our top long-distance riders. Does that mean that he's likely to ring up number 1 today? Well, he's in a position, isn't he? That's right. He himself reckoned that he couldn't win and that he wouldn't be in the top 6 by the first refueling point, and he's in third place. Now, there are reasons. Alan Moffat has dropped out with the ring failure and a car that they just didn't have time to run in, and it was as simple and as unhappy as that. Dick Johnson, of course, the worst luck story that I've ever heard here, one that still fills me with enormous annoyance that someone could throw a rock across the track and put Dick out after leading the race for 16 laps.
We're following up for all you people watching across Australia, in the big cities and in the remote towns. Switchboards are still jammed across Australia of people wanting to know what they can do to help Dick Johnson. We'll be able to give you some information on that very shortly. We're just clearing that right through the network at the moment. But of course the sad case of Dick Johnson, as you saw, leading the race as a privateer, doing a great job, had already established a big break over the dealer team cars and the other chances in the race, only to have a spectator throw a large rock over, which hit the car, set it out of control, smashed it and put it out of the race.
Well, as you heard Dick Johnson himself say, he gambled his whole motor racing career and a very large slice of his life on this one race today. Every last cent that he had was invested in that car. And something like that. Unbelievable.
Larry Perkins at the wheel of the car. He's worth watching down through the dipper. He lifts that inside wheel higher than any other driver. A very exuberant person, Larry. Has run in Formula 1. A very talented driver from a famous family in Cowangi in Western Victoria. His father was a noted rally driver, won 2 of the old Mobile Gas trials, as they were called, back in the late 50s. Larry and his brothers have all gone motor racing. Larry looked to have the greatest chances of success.
Just had a message from the pits that Colin Bond is out of fuel and is sort of rolling down Conrod and will be coming into the pits.
Well, we'll keep our eye for Colin Bond as we
I think he's coming in now.
Larry Perkins around the track. He had the misfortune to arrive on the Formula 1 scene in time to be invited to drive for BRM, which in the state that BRM was in those years was the kiss of death. In the meantime, here's Colin Bond, who's got into the pits. Changing over, Steve Marston, Rookie of the Year 2 years ago, and one of the real finds in Australian motor racing, about to take over. Colin Bond approaching the veteran class now. Almost showing a fatherly interest in the way that Steve goes. Fuel churns going in. There's an old saying about Bathurst: you don't win on the track, you lose races in the pits. And a slick bit of pit work such as the Marston team seem to be displaying here can well and truly give the driver victory. These people, of course, are out for a class victory. There are 4 races in one here, and they'd like to come home leaders in the 3-litre class.
We should mention at this time that there is a handicap section, the index of performance, by which a very complicated formula, all the classes can be compared, and overall best performance can be judged. And at the moment, it's the 2-litre car 44 of the Peter Williamson Celica that is leading the index of performance from car 37, the Capri of Hopwood and Daly. fact, after the Celica, the Capris pretty well dominate that index of performance. They've got the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 positions.
Yes, the Capris really going well this year. Their lap times generally about 5 seconds better than the past. In fact, some of their rivals have been glancing under the bonnets to see what they've done to them. But all the drivers will say is we've just refined a few things. And as the index is determined upon performance in previous years, the fact that as a group they've got so much faster has lifted them right up into calculations, being headed at the moment only by the Peter Williamson Toyota.
Okay, in the pits with an update and some interesting information is Chris Economaki. Take it away, Chris.
Well, down here in the pits, there's a significant development. For those fans who came great distances to see Alan Moffat race, they may get to see him race some more today. He's standing with his helmet and his gloves in his hand, hoping to be called upon by, of all people, Bob Morris in the number 7 Breville pit. He says he's been ordered to stand by to possibly take over that car before today's Hardy 1000 is over. So we may well see Alan Moffat get in that car, and who knows, if he may share it in victory lane again. That's the story for the pits right now.
Thank you, Chris Economaki. Well, that would be interesting. Under the rules, it is possible to substitute another driver. And Alan Moffat will be a great substitute driver. Bill O'Brien was the man who was going to share the wheel behind Bob Morris. And O'Brien hasn't had the experience of Morris, and he certainly hasn't had the experience, particularly in Fords, of Alan Moffat. So maybe there are some moves there in the 7 Breville pit to get the man who is such a star here at Bathurst. People either love him or hate him in about equal proportions, but no one ever denies that Alan Moffat is a master driver, particularly in the wheel of Fords. And if he does get into the Bobby Morris car, that I think will add just a little bit extra edge to the threat that Morris is still imposing on the race. He's back a bit, having gone into the pits in an unscheduled stop a little earlier on, but still well and truly in a position from which he can challenge. He's running in 4th place. He's just behind Peter Brock, who now has brought his car up into 3rd spot. The leader is John Harvey. 2nd place is Alan Grice. And then Peter Brock, so you have 3 Commodores leading the race, with Bobby Morris then in car number 7 in 4th place. Gary Cook into the pits, helping Warwick Brown to take over for the spell. Warwick Brown, a man who honed his talents in single-seaters. Hasn't done a great deal of touring car racing, although he has been here at Bathurst before, but brings an enormous amount of experience in motor racing generally to the Citizen team. Gary.
Uh-oh, trouble with the Masterton car, and it looks like it's parked, has it, with a flat tyre?
Oh, he wouldn't have stopped if he had a flat tyre. I think he'd try and go around and just see what's going to happen.
Which of the two is it, though?
I don't think it's
Masterton. Not 32, it's not Masterton.
It's the 2nd car, probably Bruce Stewart, who was sharing that car with Cam Warner, and it's car 31, then the 2nd of the Masterton home entries. And whatever the trouble is down on that side of the car. You can see him there, so that still leaves Masterton himself, who is sharing the wheel of car 32 with Colin Bond out on the track and in the lead in the class. They're running his team waiting there, wondering where he is. You can see Cam Warner walking around saying, where is he? They were running in 14th place and 3rd in the class, so they were doing well. But he's parked out on the track, and I think the message will come through from the monitors along pit row that his car isn't going to come in. Now, there's a confused driver saying, where is he? They were originally in this team going to run just 1 entry. They had 2 cars, and they were going to find which was the better. But they decided to put them both in, Bruce Stewart and Cam Warner, driving the car, but the car itself is now parked out. And there's a picture of a crew who've lost something and don't know where to find it. And now the message is coming from those, as Colin Bond's wife, Robin, who's been watching the television and saying, I just saw it on the 7 screen and it's parked up on top of the mountain. I don't know what's wrong, but it ain't coming home.
Well, there's the other car, of course, the lead car for the Masterton Homes Capri team coming down through the mountain. Car that's driven today by Colin Bond and Steve Masterton.
Terry Wade in pursuit in the Dolomite that spent so much time early in the pits. He was about the first visitor, got the car going again.
Just further back to the Dick Johnson story, as I've said before, our switchboards and all network stations and our country stations right across Australia are absolutely jammed with people who want to do something constructive to help Dick Johnson, because as he said, he's a privateer. They threw almost $100,000 into this effort with only minimal sponsorship, and of course leading the race quite easily and doing so well in qualifying. Johnson is in the pits and totally shattered because of someone throwing a boulder over the fence or a heavy rock that threw into the side of his car, sent him out of control and was crashed out of the race. Now, if you'd like to take special notice of what we're going to flash on the screen for you shortly. We are going to start the Dick Johnson Racing Team Appeal Fund. Now, if you feel strongly and would like to send along a few dollars or a few $100 or $1,000 or whatever, and you're a keen motor racing fan and you're enjoying the telecast and you're not here at Bathurst, please do the following. Please send your cheque, make it payable to Dick Johnson Racing Team, and please send to ATN Channel 7, Epping, New South Wales 2121. Do not ring the station that you're watching at the moment. It would be much better if you were just to send that off in the post rather than we're not acknowledging names. It's not a telethon, it's strictly off the cuff. Please send along to Dick Johnson Racing Team, care of ATN Channel 7, Epping, New South Wales 2121. And all money received will be passed directly to the Dick Johnson Racing Team, and you will be advised of the total received on the 7 Network News.
I got a feeling, you know, that by the end of today, Dick could be well on his way to building another car.
Well, I sincerely hope so, and I think a lot of motor racing supporters around Australia. I know they give to all the various telethons in different cities in Australia, but here is a case of a sportsman in your sport who has been, well, shall we say, straight out of luck, and he deserved a win here today. Well, at least a finish. So if you want to do that, you know the address. We've already flashed it for you. ATN Channel 7, make it payable to the Dick Johnson Racing Team and send it off to ATN Channel 7, New South Wales 2121. Let's get back to the race.
Steve Marston circulating at the moment. He's leading the class, and let's call upon the IBM computer to punch up the figures as they are in the 3-litre class, being led at the moment by Steve Marston, who's just taken over from Colin Bond in this car. They just went by, in fact, Wayne Negus in the West Australian Commodore. We haven't seen them on screen before, car 14. They had an all-night building effort outside one of the motels, I noticed last night in Bathurst. It maybe is affecting the way they're performing. And here are the results as far as the 3-litre class are concerned. Now, the pit stops have taken place, which puts Barry Seaton in front. Now, he hasn't stopped yet, but he must still make one more stop, which should even things up a little bit as his other cars start coming into the pits to refuel and maybe change cars. But that's the way they're running. In 5th place, car 31 is out on the track, so we can start forgetting them, I think. The second of the car, the 3-litre Commodore of Scotty Taylor from down at Wodonga, running in 5th place in the class, an experimental running this year on Scotty's behalf to see just how a smaller car would go. And there's Steve Marston leading the 3-litre class way up in the field in an outright position. And while there's a very heavy rate of attrition among some of the bigger cars, it's equally strong among some of the smaller ones as well. It really has been a race of damage and trouble very early in the piece.
While the laps are ticking up, so is the money for those people that are leading or have led the race at various stages so far, because the Coca-Cola bottlers have been putting up $50 per lap for the outright leader on each of the first 80 laps. And I think there's been a few leaders. It'll be pretty difficult to work out just who's collected what so far. There it is. See, you ask and you shall receive. The IBM people are communicating with me at the moment to tell me that the Harvey Harrop car 25 Holden Lithium Commodore have picked up $400, leading for 8 laps. Car 6, the Craven Mild Commodore of Alan Grice, has picked up $1,000 for leading for 20 laps. And, well, there's the start for Dick Johnson. He's got $850 for that part of the race that he did lead before that terrible mishap. The car 17 Falcon.
And the Marston car just passes the collection vehicle, which is on its way to pick up his teammate.
Somebody playing sandcastles.
I don't know what they're going to do with that one, because you'll need to have a very unusual sort of car to get in there. Gerald Kay in the Dolomite has bogged it in the sand trap down at the bottom of the field. Now, it's a nice safety feature, but it's very hard to get out, because the purpose of the sand is to slow the cars down and stop them having a really serious accident, but there's no way in the world he can drive it out of there. The driver has taken his helmet off. Kay obviously he's going to wait for a tow to get him out. Whether the car is mobile or whether he has further damage, we don't know. But the Jag parts entry, and at the moment he doesn't need parts, he needs sand mats to get it out of there. In the meantime,
is leading the class. In fact, it's got that class pretty well bottled up. Not just that Capri, but the Capris in general. 4 or 5 of them blanketing the 3-litre class at the moment, and Colin Bond and Steve Masterton are right in amongst them. It's the Seaton Capri that's leading the 3-litre class at the moment, but he's going to have to come in for a pit stop very shortly.
Quite a dice going on for the lead, Gary. 25, Johnny Harvey, leading from Alan Grice in car 6. Only a couple of laps ago, it was 6.38 seconds. Now it's down to 3.11. So Grice is out for the lead again. He must have heard your remark about that prize money from Coke, and he's out to gain a few more $50 rewards.
Well, it's there to be had. Coca-Cola bottlers, $50 a lap for the first 80 laps. And I think Grice would be happy to have some more of it.
Among the small cars, as we watch one of the class cars, but 2 sizes down, the 1.6 litre cars, we have the leader at the moment. 6 laps down on the outright contender is the Gemini of Finnegan and Dane, leading the Mitsubishi Lancer of Burrell and Shute, the Gemini of Price and Jonah, the Corolla Levin of Bill Gates, who won the 3 litre class last year, and one of the women drivers in the race, Alexander Surplus, who are running 4th place.
Came off the rear of the grid.
That's right, so they worked their way up 4th in the class. 5th is Bob Holden, who's been in every Bathurst except one, 1968, when he was involved in the London-Sydney Marathon, driving a small Escort. He won the race outright in 1966 with the Finnish driver Rino Altman, but he's back in 5th place in the class at the moment, just in front of the Alpha Sub of Ray Golson, which is running in 6th place. Had a massive engine blow up in practice, and in fact threw a rod through the bonnet, but has a standard motor there, and he's running Little Alpha, a lovely little car, in 6th place outright.
I think Peter Williamson may be preparing to come in. I see his pit crew making preparations over there as if getting ready to receive him, so we'll keep an eye on Peter, leader in the 2 litre class at this stage.
There we just saw the little Corolla Levin, which Alexandra Surplus will be driving, the little yellow car, just herring round there after Marston and losing out to the faster car. But here we have Barry Seaton. Barry Seaton, 44 today. A birthday. The last time I can recall he had a birthday at Bathurst, he won't want to repeat what he did then, because that was back in 1967 and he rolled his car over, which is a most un-Seaton-like manoeuvre. Barry Seaton, though, running 2nd in the class for 2 litre cars. Bob Stevens waiting in the pits to take over from Ron Dixon. He's in car number 2, the Chev Camaro. Bob Stevens, who helped in the preparation of the car, been an exponent of sports sedan cars. And we're back in with Peter Williamson, who's heading down the straight, and we think he's about to go in the pits. Coming down Breville Straight. Oh no, it's just we're towing the...
It's the 31 car, the Marston, yes. 31 car.
The Stewart car up. I thought for a minute we'd lost car 32, but he's been parked there, a different angle and being hauled in. Peter Williamson not going into pits this time, although his crew are obviously ready and waiting. At the top of the circuit, one of the recovery cars with a winch fitted to the top, as you can see. ARDC officials, 700 in all around the track. Joe Moore taking over from King George Tavern car. Oh, a very wide manoeuvre there. It looked like Peter Brock. We just saw the tail end of the car coming around the top of the mountain. Barry Seaton going down the hill.
Just listening on the two-way, the pits are calling in Peter Williamson on the next lap.
Yes, I see Mike Quinn helmeted up and all ready to go, so there's obviously going to be a tyre change, refuel and driver change in the Williamson Celica.
The leading 3 at the moment outright. Johnny Harvey in car 25, Alan Grice in car 6, and Peter Brock, who's worked his way up into 3rd place. Only 3 seconds now between the leading 2 cars. Quite a cluster of talent at the moment in that little group we saw going down the straight.
So Alan Grice continues to close slowly but surely on John Harvey, and there's quite a battle developing there for the outright lead in the 1980 Hardy Ferodo 1000 at the moment.
With the pit stops, Barry Seaton leading the 3 litre class. When he comes in, a little hard to say. You can see the Peter Brock car with the damaged left-hand wing just leading Johnny Harvey. He's got by him, he's got by Alan Grice. Harvey just in front of Grice. Now it's as close as that. Grice is right on Harvey's toe. This is a battle for the lead. Now Brock is 1 lap behind them, although he's got by them again. He has to unlap himself and he'll be back in action. And it's Grice who's got through, and Grice goes back in the lead. And John Harvey says, I'm not too happy about that. He knows of the awards, the $50 per lap. It all adds up to a fairly substantial amount. These are in the Coke laps, the first 80 laps of the race. And Alan Grice, who led for 20 laps earlier in the event, and now has Bobby Forbes, who has the the Camaro going very hard up the straight. Maybe he hasn't got to worry about brakes uphill, and he's really putting the foot down and getting among John Harvey and Alan Grice, and that's a threesome to watch. And just in front of them is Peter Brock.
Okay, we can see the cars coming up the top of the hill. Chris Economaki is in the pits and ready for a cross. Are you ready, Chris?
Sure am, Mike. First of all, I just had a chat with Dick Barber, who's turned that Ron Dixon Pepsi Amco Camaro over to Sam Posey, the fellow American. He said he broke his fuel pump belt the lap before his pit stop, so it really wasn't too bad. He said the track is littered with what he calls junk. The Australian word is rubbish. He said that consists of a lot of parts from cars that have had accidents, as well as the rocks. He said it's quite bad at the top of the circuit. Also, the Asia-Australia Express Falcon, driven by Jim Keogh, and Ross Matheson is in for an oil pressure problem. And perhaps Evan can check the entry list. We've been losing our Falcons one by one. This race may go to the Commodores by default. And that's it from the pits now.
Well, in the pits at the moment, we have Peter Williamson. In fact, we rode in with him, Chris. We've got a great view of his open bonnet at the moment. And just in the rear vision mirror, we can see Peter working at the seat belts to get out. And Mike Quinn will take over and take out the car that is leading the 2-litre class. The bonnet checked, everything okay with the double overhead cam motor, which has taken him to so many victories in class races over the last couple of years. And Mick Quinn in the car now.
My gee, that was a quick stop, a quick change. Willow's out. Quinn the Garbo is in the car, and car 44, the Williamson Celica, pulls out back onto the track, and we'll be back with more action shortly from the Hardy Ferodo 1000.
That's a steaming disc brake you're looking at, the rear end of a Falcon, I'd say, by the leaf spring. Murray Carter is in the pits, and there's Murray Carter and Graham Lawrence at the wheel. Chris Economaki was asking me what the situation regarding Falcons is. The IBM computer, as we hone in on the engine of the Murray Carter Falcon, is that really only one car is out there in contention. That's doing pretty well. That's the Bob Morris and Bill O'Brien Falcon number 7, running in 4th position with 50 laps covered. But from there on, it gets a pretty sorry sort of story. The Falcon of Moore and Gibson, Freddie Gibson, 3 laps down with 46 covered. And then car 22, Keogh and Matheson, who've been in the pits but are 13 laps behind the leader. Then Murray Carter, who's now dropped 19 laps, is in 4th among the Falcons. And then Gary Wilmington has dropped down with 20.